The sun seared the horizon with a vengeance, painting the sky in hues of blood and fire as Ronaldo Reverb met the gaze of the Tellurian envoy. The harsh light glinted off the hooded figure's eyepiece, a high-tech anomaly against the backdrop of decay that stretched across Terran green. Reverb, the envoy's voice crackled through the dust-laden air. "We've got a proposition for you." Ronaldo, whose reputation was built on the thunderous echoes of his explosive mastery, merely nodded, the corner of his mouth twitching into a semblance of a smile. This was no ordinary job offer, it was an invitation to dance with death itself for a chance at immortality. Coordinates. Explosives, the envoy listed, dropping a rugged datapad into Ronaldo's calloused hands, and a fortune for every cult cache you turned to ash. "Fortunes are fleeting," Ronaldo replied, running a finger over the pad, feeling the heat pulsate from its core. "Legends aren't." His voice held the weight of a man who had seen empires rise and fall in bursts of flame. With a nod, the Tellurian turned away, leaving Ronaldo alone with the promise of destruction and wealth. He looked out at the fragmented society he navigated, a wasteland where the weak were forgotten and the strong forged legends in fire and blood. Hefting his pack, laden with explosives capable of birthing shockwaves like monstrous offspring, Reverb set forth. Each step away from the Tellurian north was a step into desolation, into a land where trust was as scarce as water. The terrain shifted beneath his boots, loose soil giving way to jagged rocks, a testament to the planet's tortured soul. As the Tellurian stronghold faded into the distance, Ronaldo encountered the mistrustful glare of Southerners, his own kin. Their eyes narrowed, weighing his presence, a silent question lingering in the air: friend or foe. He stooped slightly, making himself less of a target, an old habit born from survival. The Southerners parted like a reluctant sea, allowing him passage but with weapons always within reach. "Stay vigilant," Reverb 1 called out, a gruff voice tinged with caution rather than camaraderie. "Always do," he replied without looking back. Independence ran in their blood, but so did suspicion. Further on, the unpredictable brigands lurked, their motives as shifting as the sands they stood upon. Ronaldo's hand never strayed far from his sidearm, his eyes scanning for the telltale signs of ambush. A sudden rustle, a shadow flitting between ruins and attack was deflected by quick wits and quicker reflexes. Bullets sang a deadly lullaby, whispering past him as he returned fire. "Try harder," he muttered, the adrenaline flooding his veins with a familiar rush. Each skirmish was a brutal ballet, a dance with death that left him standing while others fell to the ground, lifeblood staining the earth. In Terran green, alliances were as fragile as the peace they pretended to uphold. The sun dipped below the jagged peaks of the horizon, casting long shadows across the barren landscape as Reverb trudged on. He moved like a specter through the wastelands, leaving behind the echoes of gunfire and the silence of the dead. Ahead lay the heartland of the forgotten, shrouded in danger and the heavy weight of impending detonations. Ronaldo Rees, known as Reverb, embraced the solitude of his path, each step a testament to his resolve and the legend he was destined to become. Ronaldo Reverb Rees crouched behind a ragged slab of concrete, his eyes scanning the terrain with practiced caution. The landscape was a tapestry of destruction, where once towering structures now lay in ruins, their skeletal remains reaching toward a sullen sky. He observed the signs of life amidst the desolation of flickering light, the faint murmur of voices, the subtle shift of rubble. These were the scribes, an order as ancient as the written word they worshipped. "Identify yourselves," called out a voice, marked by the timbre of authority and the crackle of age. A figure emerged from the shadows, draped in robes that seemed to hold 1,000 tales within their threads. "Name's Reverb," Ronaldo replied, keeping one hand on the detonator tucked into his belt. "I hear you're looking to get into the Forgotten's vaults." "Indeed," the lead scribe said, stepping closer, his face illuminated by the dim light of the dusk. "We seek the truth buried in their bunkers, and you." "Explosives," Reverb stated, matter-of-factly, "and whatever's necessary to get to them." An uneasy truce formed between them, a nexus of convenience in a world where trust was a currency few could afford. The scribes, guardians of history, were on a quest for enlightenment. Reverb was driven by the promise of payment and the thrill of a challenge. Despite their differing goals, they needed each other, the scribes for Reverb's unique skills, and he for their knowledge of the cult's elaborate defenses. The alliance was precarious, like the weathered bridge they traversed over a chasm of forgotten technology. Words passed between them, half-whispered secrets of the cult's habits and the structural weaknesses of their sanctuaries. Reverb listened intently, every detail etching itself into his mind's eye, mapping out the intricate dance of destruction to come. "Stay sharp," Reverb warned, as they left the bridge behind. The ground beneath their feet was treacherous, littered with remnants of a civilization that had crumbled under its own weight. They were far from any semblance of safety, entering a domain where the air was thick with the stench of decay and desperation. Their path took a sudden, violent detour as the brigands, those predatory scavengers of the wasteland, sprung their trap. Gunfire erupted, shattering the silence. Bullets whistled through the air like deadly serpents, striking stone and flesh with indiscriminate fury. Reverb threw himself into the fray, his hand steady as he returned fire, his movements deliberate and lethal. "Cover," he shouted, signaling the scribes to take shelter behind the debris. His mind raced, formulating strategies amidst the chaos. With the precision of a conductor orchestrating a symphony of violence, Reverb directed the scribes, exploiting the environment to their advantage. "Focus your fire on the left flank," he commanded, squeezing off rounds to suppress the attackers. The brigand fell, a crimson bloom spreading across his chest as he crumpled to the earth. The battle raged, the air thick with the scent of gunpowder and blood. Reverb moved like a shadow, his presence felt more in the impacts of his bullets than in sightings of him. He was everywhere. And nowhere, a specter haunting the brigands every step. When the dust settled, the aftermath was a grim tableau. Several scribes lay motionless, their stories ended too soon. The survivors bore the scars of the encounter, their eyes reflecting both the cost of their journey and the resolve to continue. Reverb surveyed the damage, his expression unreadable yet tinged with a silent lament for the fallen. "Let's move," he said gruffly, reloading his weapon. "Daylight's burning, and we've got miles to go before we sleep." Together they pressed on, their footsteps echoing amid the ruins of a world that could no longer remember peace. Each mile gained was a testament to their tenacity, each breath a defiance of the death that stalked them at every turn. Terran Green was unforgiving, a planet scarred by conflict and loss, but Ronaldo Reverb would not be deterred. His legend, like the shockwaves of his explosions, would resonate across the wastelands long after the smoke had cleared. The horizon was a serrated edge of rock and desolation, the sun dipping low enough to set the tips of the Johannes mountain range aflame. As Ronaldo Reverb reached the threshold where fertile lands turned to barren slopes, he paused to regard his companions one final time. "We part ways here," Reverb said, his voice carrying over the wind that whipped through the jagged peaks. His gaze lingered on the scribes, their robes now stained with the dust and blood of their journey. "May history remember you kindly," one of the scribes replied, an elder with eyes that had seen too much yet still sought more. "History's got nothing on me," Reverb retorted, his stooped posture straightening just enough to betray the confidence of a man who knew his worth. With a nod that served as both farewell and acknowledgement of their shared trials, he turned away from them, his solitary silhouette soon swallowed by the mountain's shadow. The terrain grew treacherous with each step, loose stones and sharp outcrops conspiring to slow his advance. Yet Reverb moved with practiced caution, every sense attuned to the telltale signs of the cult's lookouts. The mountains were alive with whispers of movement, a skitter of pebbles here, a rustle of wind there, all potential harbingers of hidden watchers ready to sound the alarm. His approach to the first bunker was methodical, a dance of stealth learned from countless sorties into enemy territory. It was nestled in a natural crevasse, cloaked in darkness and deception. The entryway was heavily guarded, two figures shrouded in the garb of the forgotten, rifles cradled like precious offspring. They hadn't noticed him. Not yet. Crouching behind a boulder, Reverb's fingers brushed against the cool metal of the explosives in his pack. The charges were his signature, his art. They would sing a song of destruction that would resonate through the ranks of the cultists. He allowed himself a thin smile, one devoid of humor and rich with anticipation. Night had fallen when he made his move. Shadows were his accomplices as he edged closer, the guard's conversation reduced to a murmur by the gusts that swept through the chasm. In a swift motion born of necessity, he incapacitated the first guard with a chokehold, dragging the body into the dark recesses before the second could react. The silenced shot from his pistol was a soft exhalation, the second guard crumpling without a sound. Inside, the bunker unfurled like a labyrinth, its corridors a tangle of concrete and steel. Reverb's footsteps were hushed, his presence a ghostly imprint upon the air. Every corner turned was a calculated risk, every door breached an invitation for discovery. He planted the charges with an artisan's care, setting timers with meticulous precision. He found himself holding his breath, not from fear but from the acute focus of a craftsman on the cusp of completing his masterpiece. The seconds ticked down in his mind, a silent countdown syncing with the rhythm of his pulse. The crescendo of impending chaos vibrated within him, a symphony only he could hear. And then, with one last glance at the placement of his handiwork, Reverb slipped back into the shadows, prepared to unleash the fury of his nickname upon the unsuspecting cult. The detonation would be his declaration, his challenge to the silence of the mountains, a reverb that would echo through the heartland of the forgotten. The mountain heaved, a titan disturbed from slumber. Earth and stone vaulted skyward as the detonation tore through the bunker's heart, unleashing a cataclysmic roar that shattered the silence of the Johannes range. In the wake of the blast, a cloud of debris billowed like the exhale of some subterranean beast, and Ronaldo Reverb felt the shockwave caress his spine, a lover's touch, both familiar and grim. But the explosion was more than just a statement, it was a beacon, and within moments the forgotten emerged. They swarmed like vengeful wraiths, their cries melding with the mountain's groans. Outnumbered, Reverb gritted his teeth, the taste of dust and adrenaline thick upon his tongue. "Come on, you bastards," he spat, his voice lost in the chaos as he retreated to the cover of jagged rocks and twisted metal. With precision born of countless skirmishes, Reverb dispatched the first wave with his rifle, the crack of gunfire a staccato rhythm against the throbbing aftershock of his handiwork. Each pull of the trigger was an echo of his heart's furious tempo, each fallen cultist a reluctant step towards survival. His ammunition dwindled, the magazine clicking empty, and he transitioned seamlessly to his sidearm. The cultists closed in, their fervor undiminished by the bodies of their brethren. They were relentless, driven by a cause that Reverb had only begun to fathom. "Independence be damned," he muttered, ducking a frenzied swing of a makeshift blade. The battle was a blur, a dance of desperation on the edge of annihilation. He moved with a southerner's grace, every step deliberate, every motion weaving the tapestry of his escape. As the last of his pursuers fell, silence settled once more over the devastated landscape. Reverb's chest heaved, his breath a ragged symphony to the ache in his muscles and the fire in his veins. He staggered away from the smoldering crater, the mountain's blackened maw a testament to his craft. Perched atop an adjacent ridge, concealed by the remnants of once mighty pines, Reverb watched as reinforcements arrived, their silhouettes etched against the glow of fire still raging below. Their numbers were a revelation, a tide of zealots pouring forth to mourn their loss and seek retribution. In their midst, he saw the truth their weapons were but tools their true might lay in the unyielding conviction that bound them. A shiver coursed through him as he contemplated the cycle of violence he perpetuated, the endless struggle that defined Terran Green. Was it worth it, he whispered into the wind, his query dissipating among the whispers of ash and embers. The trek back to Tellurian territory was long, a solitary march haunted by the echoes of battle and doubt. Reverb knew the weight of his reward would feel heavier than any explosive he'd ever shouldered, a burden not of mass but of meaning. He returned to the Tellurians, a figure carved from the very desolation he traversed, his legend cemented yet his soul adrift in the murky expanse of moral ambiguity. As he claimed his fortune, the coins cold against his calloused palm, Reverb understood that while he may have left the mountains behind, their shadows loomed large over the horizon of his future. Thanks for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, be sure to leave it a like and subscribe.